Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. Well, thought I'd start this week by talking about a conversation I had with Jigger Jim this morning. I always call him, first of all, to get information on Black Lake, but Jim has fished all over our area. He fishes with his sons, his friends, and here's the reason that I call Jim. Number one, he's tremendously open and friendly with me, but also working in the log cabins on Black Lake, he's talking with fishermen all day long, every day of the week that are coming in there. And he said, well, how are you guys doing? What you using? Well, this is what I would recommend, this type of thing. But it's a great way to have a sense of what's happening on the lake. And he told me a lot of people have been having a really tough time this year. They're not catching the fish that they want to catch. And these are people that are coming from all over the East. That's what Black Lake is famous for. However, he said some of them coming in are doing fantastic. And I said, why, Jim? Is it because they're better fishermen? He says, well, I think there's a lot to this. But he said, let me tell you something else I've noticed. It's the women that are catching more fish. Now, why would that be? And this is coming from Jim now, not coming from me. He says because they're more patient than men. They go out there and the men cast and they expect to strike immediately as it's sinking, as it's doing this, whereas the women are more patient. They'll look around, their line will be slack, they'll be doing this and that. And what they're doing is they're giving the fish a chance to look at what's coming down at them, to sort of decide, okay, am I in the mood to eat? Am I annoyed because that's come into my zone? Whatever goes through a fish's prehistoric mind and makes them decide, but it gives them time. And a lot of times fish do need time. They'll see something come into their area and they'll watch it go down. It'll fall through the depth of the water and go on the bottom, and they'll look to see if it moves, if it quivers, what it does. And that's a lot of times what takes place. Unless a fish is very, very active, very, very aggressive, this happens especially as it gets farther along in the summer. This happens more and more. The water temperature is warmer. The fish may be less likely to feed all during the day. I mean, there's so many factors involved. The other thing Jim told me is that fishing a wacky worm Senko seems to be one of the best ways that people, the majority of people, can catch fish on Black Lake. Now, we talked a week ago about how the frog fishing way back in the weeds was the most effective. But if you're not a serious, everyday fisherman, if you're more of a casual fisherman, that's a very specific way to fish, and it's going to be a lot tougher for you to get the habit, to have the right kind of rod that's stiff enough to bring those fish through the weeds. So by using a wacky worm, now, why is a wacky worm more effective? And I asked Jim that. He says, and for those of you that don't know, even though I've mentioned it a lot of times, a wacky worm means that the hook goes through the middle of the worm. So it sort of folds down on itself, and each side will tend to quiver and wiggle as it goes down. People have discovered that's a tremendous way of fishing. So Jim recommends a wacky, actually a Senko worm. And why are Senkos better? We'll talk about that in another episode. But the point is, fishing's been tough, but for those who persevere, if they're not catching fish on one thing, try something else. Try a different color, a different scented bait. All the soft plastic baits, the companies put their own specific scent into that. Does it make a difference? The fish can tell you if you experiment. So there's a lot of ways, you know that old saying, there's a number of ways to skin a cat. Horrible saying, but this is true. If you're not catching fish, try something different, a different size, a different color, or a different type of bait. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.